Welcome back, everyone. POW Ponder Weather here. We've got a very active setup taking shape over the next couple of days. So let's really break down the details for you and so you can plan ahead and know what to expect. Here's this powerful low pressure center really setting up shop across the west coast. That is going to be traversing southbound, staying offshore as it continues to dump heavier rains. At the same time, we've got a low pressure center that's going to making its way inland, dumping some heavier snows across the Intermountain West. We've got a cold front that's bringing some instability across portions of northern Illinois this morning, as well as a cold front further south that has finally kind of washed out after it left a lot of heavier rain in its wake. So let's take a look at the breakdown, because today's more of the quiet day. It's a really calm day out there for a good part of the country while we're waiting for this next storm system that's entering the west coast. So it definitely has a lot of instability with it. The more powerful winds, as it's going to bring in some heavier rains inland, especially along the west coast into places like San Francisco and to central portions of California. And there's the mountain snows that is dumping inland, and there's the cold front that's still pushing south across portions of Illinois. And we'll be watching this cold front actually stall out and back up as a warm front. So this is going to be a significant game player as we head into Thursday and Friday. So here further to the south, we're going to have an active dry line, and we're going to have a conditional risk that could take shape for some isolated severe storms within this region of northwest Texas, getting into western Oklahoma and back into Kansas. Again, it's a conditional risk based on the capit inversion that is up aloft there, that could just put a squash on any development that could unload in that region. But here's the main setup out west. We're going to be watching this storm system dumping some heavier snows as all these dynamics really start to come together on the day on Friday. And that's going to be your significant day for severe storms. So we got this Pacific front that's moving across Texas. There's the active dry line that gets active in the morning hours. It's probably not severe within the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but once you get past, say, east of the I-35 corridor, some of those could start to turn severe, especially as we head into East Texas into the afternoon hour. At the same time, there's that cold front that's backed up as a warm front, and that's lifted all the way up into portions of southern Wisconsin by then, as well as into portions of Michigan. And then you've got a huge, widespread, significant severe risk across about 9 states. So it looks like a multi-state setup. Here's this powerful low pressure center screaming across. This is pretty extreme, guys. This is over 100 knots. So basically it's saying, hey, up above 17,000 feet, those winds are going to be screaming at 100 plus knots miles an hour. And at the same time, at the surface, we've got a lot of shear heading up into about the 70 to 75 knot range. So this is significant and such widespread. And these storms are going to be really fast moving storms. We're talking 60 to 70 mile per hour range as this is going to be racing across. So here's the setup, and this is a huge risk for severe storms. So I think it eventually starts to unload basically past east of the I-35 corridor, but especially as you head into East Texas, Northeast Texas, where I think things are going to start to get active into Friday afternoon time frame, but really start to unload and start to become more tornadic as we head into Arkansas, northern portions of Mississippi, western Tennessee, and then eventually heading up into Missouri, into Illinois, into Indiana, as even in Iowa here. So this is a multi-state event and widespread event for severe storms because these are moving so fast. So the breakdown, you've got a significant 30% probability. So when the Storm Prediction Center highlights this area in the morning time, I'm probably expecting an upgrade to a moderate risk for severe storms and a huge, at least 10, if not portions of 15% hatched risk for strong tornadoes within this sector. So yeah, places into Little Rock, get into Springfield, those areas up all the way up north into Iowa, back into pretty much the entire state of Illinois is going to get hit with this system. eventually heading off into Indiana, get into western Tennessee, western Kentucky, and further southbound into portions of Mississippi as we head into Friday afternoon, Friday evening time frame. And this is going to form a nasty squall line as this is moving across and eventually head over into portions of Ohio, but not as significant to what you're going to be seeing earlier on in the day. So here's the setup. With all the instability that should start to unload, reaching far north into portions of Iowa, extending pretty much the entire state of Illinois, Indiana, getting into Ohio, and all these states here further south. Again, I think it's about a 9-state severe weather outbreak that could unfold, and even tornadoes as well. And some of those could be strong tornadoes on that EF2, possibly EF3 type variety tornadoes. So we got to be on high alert up here with the multi-state events. And because it's a multi-state event, because these are things that are going to be moving so quickly. I mean, we're talking, I would not be surprised of seeing some of these storms moving at 70 miles an hour. So that's how fast this jet stream is going to be traversing across. And I can't even roll out a possible derecho type setup that could unload as well, as this kind of hook type shaped straight line winds could start to bow out within these regions across Missouri, where the triple point really lies here. That's when I think we could be really looking at some significant winds really start to breaking out. And if this thing does in fact come together 400 miles an hour, 400 miles, then it could be classified as a derecho, as this is moving across a good part of the Ohio Valley and eventually heading off into Illinois, getting into Indiana during the Friday afternoon, Friday evening time frame. And then the northern side, it's all about the snow. So you still got the cold sector on the northwest side of this low pressure center, with heavier snows really breaking out across portions of Wisconsin. Eventually, this will end as snow into portions of northern Illinois, northern Indiana. So you're talking tornadoes during the daytime hours, but at night we could be ending with snow on the cold side, with the backside of this low pressure center traversing across as this rapidly fishtails down further to the south with this nasty squall line that comes across the southeast corridor, and eventually that will head off into the east, off the eastern seaboard here, and then just end with some moderate rain up here into portions of upstate New York and along the coast. But even on Saturday, we've got to be concerned about some severe storms along the coastline. So, but it's going to be windy. Where that low pressure center, there's no question it's going to be a high impact event, multi-state event, and very significant winds in its wake. Back behind that low pressure center too, traversing across with these winds over the next couple of days. But here's the setup by Saturday with the storms really impacting the East Coast. So don't be surprised. This could be on the bumpy side as well. Some of these areas could at least be bumped up to a slight risk for severe storms, even along the eastern seaboard here, as that squall line will be racing across still at 60 miles an hour, even within this sector. So definitely be on alert up here along the I-95 corridor as we get into your Saturday time frame. But it doesn't end there, because we're going into springtime storm season, folks. I mean, we're pretty much at that time of year where every single day is probably going to have at least a slight risk for severe storms somewhere in the United States. I wouldn't be surprised if you go all of April and even all of May having at least somewhere, by the time we get to that day one setup, of a slight risk somewhere in the United States. So Sunday, we got more instability coming back into play, and these could be some hail producers as well. This is more of an evening type setup, so we'll probably have to be on the lookout again into portions of North Texas, getting into eastern Oklahoma, portions of Arkansas, portions of Missouri. Within this corridor, we got to be looking at for some stronger storms that could be some larger hailstorm type producers within this sector. It's not a significant event, but we're talking about a 30, possibly 40% coverage as we head into Sunday. But then, yeah, here's the gradient. So we're still hanging on to winter out west. We got significant troughs one after another. You got well below average temperatures for much of the Pacific Northwest and a good part of the western states. And then it's all about the warm temperatures with those south winds, as the ridge will be locked over a good part of the southeast. And those well above average temperatures with those clash, that's going to be spelling that severe weather storms even into next week as well. And then, yes, going into Tuesday, that you can see the temperatures. Yeah, so we're getting up to the 100 range already down here in Mexico, 106. Even 100 spread into portions of South Texas. There's Laredo clocking in at 104 degrees coming up on Tuesday. And there's even 96 in San Antonio, 93 in Austin, even 90 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area coming up on Tuesday. Again, as those south winds really start to elevate these temperatures further south and really locked in these regions, and that colder air is locked into the north. So we're going to have yet another powerful low pressure center. This is pretty significant, guys. This almost looks like a land hurricane coming up on Tuesday, as we have a very significant another low pressure center that really rapidly deepens. And if this comes to fruition, we could be looking at some significant winds, and as well as another significant storm outbreak. This is a day 7 risk, and this is a huge wide area of a day 7 risk, and a lot of the same areas there are going to be impacted on Friday timeframe. So we're talking the Shreveport areas, the Little Rock, back into Jackson, even into Birmingham, to Huntsville, to Memphis, to Paducah, then all the way up into Springfield, you know, getting into Louisville, and this could extend even into Chicago areas as we head into your Tuesday time frame. But then the winds are really going to be cranking with that low pressure center. Some of those are going to be in the hurricane force wind variety, upwards to 60, 70, could even come up close to 80 miles an hour across the plains here. So a very windy day. April is your windiest time of the year. So yeah, we're going to be looking at, widespread wind advisories, widespread high wind warnings and watches in a lot of these areas. And the Tuesday looks to be another significant day. And if this comes to fruition, that's a 971 millibar with those very tight isobars. That's significant winds protruding off the northwest side of there, and then heavier snow too. And if this comes to fruition, we could be looking at a blizzard happening up here in the Dakotas, up here into central and northern portions of Minnesota, and then those very intense severe storms. All 3 modes are going to be on the table on the southern side of that system, and that continues into Tuesday night time frame. With that heavier snows really starting to crank out, likely at 1 to 2 inches more per hour in these areas, as we could be looking at some over foot totals easily if this thing come to fruition. And then again, a nasty squall line with a damaging wind, straight line wind type setup, and some hailstones, and as well as more tornado possibilities traversing across this region as we get into Tuesday afternoon. But yes, there's the low pressure center tracking to the north side of there, with all the heavier snows really blinding over a good part of the Dakotas, back into central and northern Minnesota. I mean, yes, Minneapolis is trying to beat their all-time snowiest, year on record, season on record, and they're going to be close. And especially if this event really plays out, we could be really getting really close to all-time totals up there in Minneapolis. But the snow really starts to extend into a good part of Michigan as well. And then up there in Canada, where winter definitely continues to hang on. But here's the breakdown for the next 10 days as far as the precipitation anomalies. These greens are basically above average precipitation, especially as you get in the blues. We're going to have series of troughs coming in off the west coast with these other powerful low pressure centers bringing above average rains across a good part of California, as well as in Oregon. That's going to be coming across parts of the Intermountain West and traversing across the north central states and bringing those above average precipitation. Then at the same time, we're going to have a southern branch as well, as the southern jet stream gets active. That activates the possibilities in the portions of, say, east of the I-35 corridor, and then elongating again across the Arklatex, through western Tennessee, through the Ohio Valley, and up here into portions of, up here into the upper Great Lakes, with all the above average precipitation coming in those regions. And then the breakdown on the temperatures for the next 10 days, as the ridge is going to be locked across a good part of the southern plains and the deep south, as well as the southeast, with those well above average temperatures. And then it's all about the well below average temperatures for March heading into April timeframe for a good part of the west, a good part of the Intermountain West. And of course, where all the snow is going to be a pretty healthy snowpack on the ground up here in the Dakotas, as well as into portions of Minnesota, and more snow for Wisconsin. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.